Greetings, music fans, and thanks for tuning in to our special holiday edition of Live from Black Rock. I'm Joe Mattimore, your host for today's episode, and we're filming here at Black Rock EPS, which is a full-service recording and production studio located in Black Rock, which is in Buffalo, New York, the heart of the known universe. And in studio today, we have Curtis Cook. Welcome, Curtis.
Thank you for having me, Joe. It's nice to be here.
Curtis is most notably the organist for the Buffalo Sabres NHL hockey team, and also the resident organist at Shea's Theater in Buffalo.
That's right.
So welcome. Thanks for being here.
That's my pleasure. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
All right, so before we get into questions, we're going to throw down some tunes on this classic Hammond B3 organ we have here in the studio, and we're going to hear some holiday favorites, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's kick it off. Live from Black Rock, it's Curtis Cook. Wow, Curtis, I got to tell you, that was just some amazing playing right there.
Well,
really great
thank
stuff.
you very much.
And,
it's my pleasure.
I mean, this organ sounds unbelievable. Before we get too far into the interview, what's special about this organ?
So this is a Hammond B3. So this is the organ sound, right? In any rock, blues, soul, any kind of stuff like that you hear organ, it's usually a Hammond B3. And it was the first of its kind to not be a pipe organ. And it had such a unique sound that not only did they use it in churches when there wasn't space for pipe organs, but they also used it for rock and roll, early rock and roll, and they still use it to this day. It has such a unique sound to it.
Yeah, a lot of even like jam bands and stuff. Usually the keyboard player will have like a keyboard and a piano sound going, but also a Hammond or at least a Hammond sound nowadays.
And you know what the funny thing is, when the Hammond organ was released, Leslie, I believe his name was Don Leslie, who designed the speaker cabinets. Lawrence Hammond absolutely hated him. He didn't want his organs anywhere near his speakers.
Wow.
But they caught on, and eventually Hammond had no way to keep the Leslie speaker off the Hammond organ, and what a pairing it's been over these last 60 years or so.
I was going to say, it's ubiquitous that you need to have the rotating Leslie, which tell us about, just real quick about the rotating Leslie so people know what that means.
So there's a big 15-inch woofer in the bottom. Okay, it's sort of like a big drum around it. And then from the organ, there's two horns on the top of the speaker as well for the higher tones. And from the organ, I have a switch here that I can make it rotate slowly or rotate a little bit more fast. So it gives it the sort of a more mellow jazz sound. Or if you punch it and turn the Leslie on, it sort of throws the sound around a little bit more.
Cool. Well, all right, cool. Well, glad to hear this classic thing, and glad to hear an expert at the keys. What's your your early exposure to music? What's your background? Where did you grow up, and how did you get into music?
So I grew up in East Amherst. My dad was a musician. He's a
outside
vocalist.
of Buffalo.
Yeah, choir director, that kind of thing. So my dad would work during the day. My mom would work at night. So when my mom went to work, my dad had to watch me because you can't leave a 3-year-old home alone, right? So I would wind up going to church choir rehearsals and musical rehearsals, whatever he was doing, and just watching. And there was a story told by one of our church choir members who'd been in the group a long time. She said that she always remembers 4-year-old me. I was a little bored at rehearsal one night, and Dad turned to me and he goes, "Hey, Curtis, how do you think that sounded?" And me and my 4-year-old wisdom goes, better, but not good. And I used that when I started teaching choir. I said, that's better, but it's not good yet.
An early critic.
I guess so. But so when I just sort of grew up around it, and I started tinkering around with the piano when I was real little. I took piano lessons for about 6 months when I was probably in about 5th grade, and then decided it's not for me. You know, the little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is not for me. So I still wanted to learn how to play, but I wanted to learn how to play what I wanted. So my first 2 music books that I had Let It Be by the Beatles. That was probably one of the first things that I learned how to play. And then I bought myself a book of Queen music and a book of Styx music. All right, so you can't really go wrong keyboard-wise with that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of built up from there. And then I got exposed to the organ. I said, well, the organ's pretty cool too. I kind of like to play around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I did. And my first real job was as a church organist. I was playing in the church that I grew up at. I was playing one day after the service was over, and the organist came up to me and she goes, "I just put in my resignation. You're the organist now." And I went, "What?" I just looked around. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Like, I've been playing the organ for like 6 months. What am I supposed to do? And then after the fact, she goes, "Hey, there's a midweek service that you got to play for on Wednesday." I said, "Okay, that's fine." And she goes, "The first half hour of it is people get to open the book and they just shout out numbers at you and you have to play them." I was 15 years old. I needed new pants after she told me that. I mean, so I had to sit there.
But was that true? They actually did that?
Oh yeah, they've done it for a long time.
Wow.
And now I enjoy it because now I know every hymn in the book and I start reharmonizing and doing all this crazy stuff. But back then, 15-year-old me was a little scared. So that started that, and that was really the introduction to everything, and everything built on that, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute.
You played the Wurlitzer at the Riviera Theater. Do you still do that, or was that an early gig?
Yeah, I just did back in August. I gave a concert, and I did a really cool thing this last year. So Stephen Page of the Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah.
He was in town when he first started his solo career. He came to the Riviera Theater in about 2010, and he remembered seeing the Wurlitzer organ in the theater. So when he came back last April, it was the day before my birthday, actually, he said, I want to do a song with the organ. So the theater called me and said, Stephen Page wants to do a song with the organ. Would you be willing to sit in with him? I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
So he said, I don't know what the song's going to be. Show up tomorrow at 5 o'clock, do a rehearsal, run through kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. I mean, I knew Bare Naked Lady songs, right?
It's a pop song. How hard could it be, right?
So I was like, okay. So I showed up, and he had like a group of VIPs in the theater watching him warm up. And he said, oh, come on up. You're going to play a song called Tonight's the Night I Fell Asleep at the Wheel. I said, okay. That was not one of the ones that I knew.
No. Yeah.
So he gave me the music, and I sat down at the organ, and they played it through once for me, and I caught on after a while. But it was great. I mean, it was an incredible experience. He was there with himself, another guitar player, and a cello player. So it was kind of not really an acoustic, but it was a trio.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of Bare Naked Lady stuff, a lot of his new stuff, and they couldn't have been nicer guys. Because when you walk into a group of musicians, whether it's local or whether it's someone of that level, right? You never totally know what's going to happen, what the dynamic is, what their personality is, any of that, right? And it was great. He was the nicest guy, made sure I had everything that I felt comfortable that I needed. And
those Canadians have a real rep for being nice.
And then his guitar player, Craig, his band, The Odds, was the house band for the Vancouver Canucks back in the late 90s. So they would play on the ice, I guess, during intermissions and stuff.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Wow,
so we bonded over that, and we keep in touch and, text back and forth and stuff a little bit every so often when there's hockey things going on. So it was an awesome experience. So the Riv definitely has a special place for me.
That place is amazing. And the Wurlitzer is from Western New York. It's from North Tonawanda.
That's right.
People didn't know that.
The factory now has a really good chocolate factory in it. If you've never had an orange chocolate milkshake from there, highly recommend, let me tell you. But a lot of the organs came out of there. And we have two organs here, the one at the Riviera and the one at Shea's, that are very special. They were used as demonstrator models for the company. People all over the world would fly or take the train into Buffalo. And if they wanted an organ for their new theater, they would go out to the Wurlitzer factory. They'd show them around the factory. Then, depending on the size of instrument that they wanted, they'd either take him to the Riviera, which was a little smaller, or they'd take him to Shea's. And both of those instruments were voiced and installed by the Wurlitzer factory themselves.
Wow.
Only a few of them, all the installations that they did were voiced and installed by Wurlitzer themselves because they wanted these things to be pristine, right?
For the demos,
absolutely, right? They're the biggest. They were the biggest manufacturer of those organs.
Yeah.
And hey, the Shea's organ especially is well known around Buffalo, not just around Buffalo, I should say. It's known around the whole theater community as being like the crown jewel of theater organs. I mean, and we're really lucky to have that here in this town.
And you get to play it.
And I get to play it. Yeah, that's even better, right?
I mean, it must feel like it seems really fun to play the organ and to be an organist and have this, command of this gigantic instrument, especially like the thing at Shea's, I mean, what does that feel like? It's got to feel like really powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you turn, it'll shake the floor if you put everything on.
Yeah.
It's really a powerful instrument. They called it the King of Instruments for a reason, right? It was designed to accompany silent films and be an orchestra in a box because back then there was no sound for movies.
Right.
Right? So either the theater had to hire a piano player. Piano player got boring because piano has one sound, that's it.
Right.
Then they hired an orchestra. You know how expensive it is to hire a 20-some piece union orchestra?
Absolutely. And,
so then they installed the organ.
Yeah.
And one person could be the whole orchestra accompanying these silent films.
Right. It's amazing. It really does have a real emotional voice to it, emotional ability or ability to convey emotion.
It's
the organ.
As wonderful quiet as it is loud, as cool as it is to feel the building, rocking underneath you.
Yeah.
Even just the sweetest little flute stops in that theater because of the acoustics ring around the theater, and it just sort of hugs you. The sound just sort of hugs you, and it's really cool.
All right, so let's talk about the Sabres, because I'm sure everyone wants to hear about the playing the organ for the Sabres, which is one of your main gigs. So you play all the home games.
Yep.
And how did you get into that gig? Let's hear that story.
That's some stupid luck, actually, is what happened. So when I was in college, I was working for a local car dealership, and one of our service guys was one of those people that everybody knows them. Wherever you go, they know somebody's from some place, somehow, right? He was the same way. John Tortorella, when he was a coach in Buffalo for a couple of years in the 90s, who's now coaching the Philadelphia Flyers, was his neighbor, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
But he also knew a couple people down at the arena, long-time employees and stuff like that. So one day, out of the blue, he knew I played the organ, and he said, "Hey, you interested in playing the organ for the Sabres?" I said, "Yes, I loved hockey growing up, but I was not what they would have called athletically inclined, right? I'd trip over air, okay, let alone trying to put on a pair of skates and go. I don't think so." I said, "Yeah, that would be awesome." They said, "Give me your card, I'll pass it along to the people that I know down there. If they need somebody, maybe they'll call you." I said, "Okay, that's fine." That was in January. I'm working at the dealership in the summertime, and we're moving cars down to Tonawanda for Canal Fest, and my phone vibrates. And it's an email from the director of game presentation going, "Hey, we have your card, and we're thinking about bringing in a rotation of musicians for next season. Would you be interested?" Yeah, of course I would be, right?
Yeah, cool.
So I went in and met with them, and they showed me around, and they said, "Okay, does this look good to you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." I said, "Okay, come in the first preseason game, we'll give you a period to play." I didn't play a lick of piano or organ for
No
anyone.
audition.
No audition. They just said,
a total hack.
"You know how to play the organ." Well, I mean, if you, it was either sink or swim, right?
Yeah,
because if you
absolutely,
say you play the organ, they put you in front of the organ in front of 19,000 people.
You better know how to
You
play.
better know how to play the organ, otherwise you'll be blacklisted from every venue in Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
But obviously it worked out okay.
Yeah,
and that first year I rotated with a couple of musicians, and the next year I got the gig full time. So now I do all 41 home games plus preseason, and there's been quite a few cool experiences from that. I played there. I played for the Bison's game, for the Hockey Night at the Ballpark every year.
Cool.
I played for the World Junior Games, so I played for that outdoor game for USA and Canada when they were here in, I think it was 2018. That was really cool, and I've got lots of memories from that. So the Sabres have been very, very good to me, and there's not a day I wake up and go, "Oh, I have to go play a hockey game tonight," right? Or I have to go and play at the theater tonight. I'm very lucky to say that I really do enjoy what I do, and I get up every morning and go, "Oh, what do I have on the docket today?"
You got a couple of the best gigs in town.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. What though? Like, let's talk about the hockey organist as a culture, as a phenomena. Is the sports organist fading or reviving?
It's reviving.
Yeah.
I think it's past the point where it's fading now.
Okay.
Back in the organ was essentially the soundtrack of any baseball or hockey game for the longest time, up until the late 80s. And then the advent of CDs and that kind of more advanced digital ways of DJing came along. Yeah. And essentially everyone said, "Oh, well, we're going to get rid of the organ. We've used the organ for 50 years. There's no reason to keep going. We've got all this new stuff to use." So the last few years that the Sabres played in the Odd, they didn't have an organist. When they moved to the new building and built the new building, they sent did surveys and stuff. And one thing that was predominant was that people wanted an organist again, because just 4 years of not having it, it got kind of stale. So now we have now we have a really good mix, and a lot of places do. I think there's only 4 NHL teams out of the 32 now that don't have a live organist, which is great.
Yeah.
Some of them are up in booths someplace. Some of us are down in the crowd like I am. But the fact that there is still live music and there still is the organ after all these years is really quite a testament to it. A lot of people who played back in the 70s and 80s would have told you that, oh, the organ's going to be gone. It'll be gone forever at sporting events.
It'll never come back. Like, once it's gone, it won't. You'll never
exactly.
Get it back.
So now it's not the main source of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
But it's still a part of the game. If it's not there, it's missing.
Yeah.
And all of us organists from baseball and hockey, we all sort of keep in touch and share the news and notes of what's going on. Like, for example, I really wanted to learn the theme from the NHL '94 theme song.
Cool. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. Yeah. And actually, the organist who plays for the Kings, I believe, recorded that for the for the soundtrack.
Well, I didn't even think of that. Like, you could be in an NHL.
Absolutely.
Video game.
Yeah.
That would be super cool.
Yeah. But so I wanted to learn the '94 theme because everybody knows the NHL '94 theme, and I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, I could sit down and do it by ear. And I believe the Sabres were playing the Devils very soon after that. And I was watching the game, and I heard the New Jersey organist, Pete Cantarosi, playing that. And I said, wait a minute. So I quick messaged him on Facebook, and I said, hey, do you happen to have sheet music for that? I said, yeah, I wrote it all out. Would you like it? I said, yes, I would. And now people request it all the time. They love it. They love to hear that theme song.
That's so great.
And it's really cool. Yeah, we try and do our best to support each other and what we do and keep it alive in our own way, just as the fans do by appreciating the music that they hear when they go to the hockey games.
Yeah. How do you decide what to play?
Most of the time, I will sit down in the afternoon on a game day, and I'll figure out, okay, is there anything that I have that relates to the team we're playing? Okay, so take Philadelphia for example. We got Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John, the Rocky theme, right? Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters. Anything that sort of mixes into the team or the team name or whatever. And I'll pull those songs out, okay? Sometimes I'll use them for like when they score or something like that. And then, I don't know. Usually it's just sort of I play by the crowd. Certain crowds do certain things. Some crowds want to chant more. Some crowds want to get into the music more. It varies game to game. And essentially, you as the organist, you have to be a fan of the game because you have to put your emotions into the selection of music that you're going to play. I'm not going to play something in a minor key if, we're up 2-0 and we've got an offensive zone face-off, right?
Yeah.
That's more of a rally thing, right? Let's get to make sure the crowd keeps going and keeps cheering. So it's kind of like a science that I can't really put down on paper. You just sort of learn it over the years.
Well, I mean, you're there amongst the crowd. You're in the crowd.
Yeah.
And you're immersed in the game. You're a part of the crowd, and you just become this amazing voice for the crowd, and like it's really cool. And I mean, you have to just be in the moment, and things just must come to you as, I'll play this, or
absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I've started to play over the last couple of years that people recognize, I think, there was a very, very annoying PSA in the 80s called Buffalo Talkin' Proud.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this woman just strutting up and down the streets of Buffalo singing this annoying song, but it was catchy.
It was super catchy.
Right?
I'm of an age where I remember that ad campaign, and I love when you play that.
Yes,
because it's like brings me back to my youth.
Right. And so making that connection with 19,000 people, making some kind of connection every game is a very difficult thing to do. But you just proved it right there, right? Just as long as you have a vast knowledge of music and you can use it in the right spot. So if we're up 3-4-0, I'm going to play Buffalo Talkin' Proud into Let's Go Buffalo because it's upbeat, it's peppy, people clap along and get them ready to go to yell and scream some more.
Yeah. Do you ever get heckled?
Oh yeah. Oh certainly. Yeah. I won't name names of teams that would particularly heckle me. It was probably worse. I used to wear these blue and gold suits when I first started there.
Yeah. Okay.
And the yellow one was yellow. I mean, it was yellow with this big Sabres logo on the back of it. And I've never been had anything thrown at me. Most of the fans are really actually into the organ music.
Yeah.
But, if their team's losing or something like that,
Sure.
Emotion gets the best of us sometimes,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And sometimes that sort of stuff happens, but, you don't take it to heart. It's just friendly competition. One of my previous bosses who worked at the Sabres, she worked there since she was an intern. And she was telling me a story when she was an intern. I think we beat the Maple Leafs like 6-0 or something. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And we beat them good. And she was on the bench waiting for the player to come off for an interview. And I think if I remember the story correctly, she was waiting to get the player. So the players were coming back off the ice, and a Toronto fan dumped their beer over the glass, or tried to hit the players, but instead went all over her instead. So there's a couple of situations where that comes into play, but most of the time I've never had any issue with it. All the fans, especially the Canadian fans, actually from the Montreal, Toronto, they're very passionate about their hockey. Right.
And as well should be passionate about their hockey organist.
They are.
Yeah.
They make it a point more so, I think, than any other opposing fans to come up to me after the game and said that was awesome. I like played Rush or you played something
really
like that,
cool.
right? Something Canadian
Yeah.
that they hooked onto, and that makes me feel good. Maybe not doesn't make me feel as good if we lose, but it makes me feel good that I'm entertaining not just our own fans, but everybody that's going to the games, and that's my job.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I need to make one special request.
Sure.
How about like the dun 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 dun?
Sure. You want me to go into anything after that?
Or whatever you usually play. Well, hey, Curtis, I want to thank you for being here today. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
It was a pleasure being here.
And I really want to thank you for playing all these holiday tunes for us on the mighty B3, not quite the mighty Wurlitzer, but the mighty B3. And we look forward to hearing more from you at all the Buffalo Sabres home games, as well as Shea's Buffalo. Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis Cook, live from Black Rock.